Yeah, there was something breaking January 17th. Yeah, but I think there was something breaking today saying that whatever Wolf did and some.
Again, with a pledge of allegiance and moment of silence led by Councilor Cramsey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. We're meeting this week on a Wednesday night instead of Thursday as we observe Veterans Day tomorrow. So I thought we could take a moment tonight. Our community is full of amazing veterans who have made great contributions to our community. Members of our staff, members of our police department, members of our fire department, even members of council have proudly served. So I wanted to take a moment tonight to recognize all of them. Not just tomorrow, but every day. I think we should definitely honor and thank our veterans. Thank you. Can I have a pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Cramsey. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Cramsey?
Here.
Ms. Fulham-Winston?
Here.
Mr. Hicks?
Here.
Ms. Landis?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here.
Mr. Stubbe?
Here.
Ms. Hayes?
Here.
All right, thank you. A quorum is present. All right, next move on to opportunity for citizens to be heard. And we have two guests with us this evening, and those folks will go first. If any other individual, either here or on Zoom, desires to address council, you may do so after these folks have gone. But I'd like to call Mr. David Lanza to the podium. And you've been here several times, sir, so just need your name, business address for the record.
Thank you, members of council, for the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm David Lanza, 2132 Market Street in Camp Hill. I'm here representing the Capital Area Rental Property Owners Association. I'm here to speak on the proposed rental inspection ordinance. One of my concerns, I know I've spoken here a number of times, and I haven't been here in about a year and a half. There's a new concern, obviously, that's come up that wasn't addressed before, and that is the issues related to COVID. And I think it's not a surprise to anybody that we're not expecting that issue to go away anytime soon. It still dominates the headlines. It still dominates the news. Even if the news is sometimes good news, as we've seen in recent headlines, or even today, a Commonwealth Court decision striking down the mask mandate, the fact is this is going to continue into the foreseeable future. That court decision is going to be appealed. My children are still required to wear masks in their schools. That's just an example. My point in bringing that up is, at this point, essentially what we're proposing to do here through this ordinance is to send a borough employee or employees from house to house throughout the borough at a time when the headlines and the news are still going to be dominated by a discussion of the pandemic and the virus. We don't really know what's in those houses as far as medical conditions. We don't know the conditions of the occupants, the tenants. We don't know how long they've been, in individual cases, how long they've been on lockdown, how long they've been out of work, how long they're going to be out of work, and what may have been festering in those apartments that might impact the greater community. And I'm suggesting now is not the time to be sending borough employees throughout the borough from house to house over a period of a number of months. Whatever you might believe about the pandemic, whether it's ending or not, this is what's going to be dominating the headlines, and we're essentially pouring gasoline onto that fire. I would like to point out also experience. I've mentioned some of this before with other communities. For example, East Pennsboro, it's been over 15 years since they adopted their ordinance. Most of the houses in that township have been through the inspection cycle 3 or 4 times. And yet there are still houses I know of from clients visiting those houses for sale that are unsafe, that have conditions that are worse than the type of conditions we've discussed here. Somehow they've managed to survive the inspections. The inspection records are matters of public record. We can see what was done or not done by looking at the records on file at the township offices. When it's brought up before the council is, well, they're unaware, and they essentially assert, well, we've got an inspection program. This couldn't be happening. This is going to be a matter of continued enforcement, continued issues. I do not think you're going to solve the problems that you're expecting to solve. Just last week, I attended a hearing in Harrisburg related to codes issues. It wasn't my hearing. I was just observing, waiting for another hearing. But the code officer, I could sense his frustration as he talked about continued code violations, additional fines, and other issues related to placarded property. Conditions that simply evaded solutions, no matter how many fines were imposed. It was clear to me sitting there, you cannot fine your way or legislate your way into better housing. The conditions of the market are determined by the market. They're determined by economic conditions. There's no way to essentially legislate the lesser quality properties in the borough to be equal to, for example, Seven Gables. It simply will not happen. And in fact, this will make housing less affordable, especially for the very people you're trying to protect, the people on the lower end of the economic ladder. They're going to be facing higher costs, higher rent. These programs are expensive, and it's no fun facing that fact, but that's really going to be the end result. And it's something that may not become apparent for a few years or a few cycles, but that's the experience of other municipalities. I think we have to look beyond merely the language of other municipalities' ordinances and see beyond seeing what they've enacted and seeing how it has turned out in the enforcement. I know that also I've heard from others that have been here, and I remember from being here before, you can calculate based on the registration and inspection fees and do the math. It comes out to seemingly a very small number, small dollar amount per unit, simply if you're talking about paying the amounts to the borough. But first of all, those with many units, that does add up. And secondly, the fact is the ordinance, there is costs of compliance that should not be there, but the ordinance as drafted now contains those costs. It makes the landlords responsible for the conduct of the tenants in terms of cleanliness issues, pest issues. Illumination was one of the references I saw in the ordinance. These are issues that are the responsibility of the tenant. To place this burden on the landlord essentially increases the landlord's cost and increases the rent. The same thing with other issues where it's a matter of definition. Matter of definition as to what is the best quality, what is the standard you want to achieve in these properties. The fact is there's always going to be better properties and worse properties within the borough and every other borough. And you cannot legislate your way into making all these properties of the highest quality. It's no fun facing that fact, but we are going to be hurting the people we're trying to protect. And I note in the borough newsletter, there's a push toward making more affordable housing available. Well, this goes in the opposite direction. There's also items regarding rental subsidies, utility subsidies. I think it's beyond question there's going to be a need for more of that with an ordinance like this. This is not going to achieve the goals you're seeking to accomplish. It's going to be taking us in the opposite direction, and I urge you to consider that before you adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Glenn White with a 2021 DCA update. Welcome, Glenn.
Good evening, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, and like we always like to do at this time of year, just kind of come in and give you an update on everything that you have been reading about. I'm hoping you get our board minutes every month. You all come to our events, and Councilor Hicks sits on many of our boards and committees. So I'm sure the word is getting out there as to actually everything that we are doing. But every year we just want to come in, make sure we're answering any questions, talk about what's happened this past year, talk about what's going on into the new year, but really just hitting the highlights. This is kind of a light version of what I normally would give you, sometimes like an 80-pager. But we just kind of wanted to make sure that our time was kept to kept tight here. Just kind of wanted to go through some things. We are still maintaining the downtown banners. We just updated those and bought new banners for the fall. They fall into downtown Carlisle. That's something that happened, something we came up with last year during COVID to kind of let people know that the downtown is still open. Whether or not some stores are closed, we're still able to do pickup. And with the restaurants, we also did a guide along with that fall into Carlisle promotion too. But that really kind of bridges the gap now between what the summertime banners were and now what the wintertime banners will be. Along with that, we had the Carlisle can banners up for many, many months. And those were able to, we were talking with the college about having those come down and replacing for the 100th anniversary of Rotary. And those you'll see there on the north side of East High and West High Street. And the interesting thing, I think, with those, they were expecting those to come down earlier, but they're going to actually we're going to take them down just after a year, and they're going to, I think, raffle them off or do a fundraiser with those. So we're really excited about that. Something that we've been doing now for about 9 or 10 years is helping out with the Rotary, and we're watering all of the hanging flower baskets for the Rotary. And then we also have another 88 flower pots that we put out. These are kind of leased flower pots that the store owners are able to get a flower pot. We will plant it for them. We will deliver it to their doorstep, and then we will pick it back up and store it over the wintertime. Judy Moore, I'm sure we all know Judy, was a person we were able to get hired this year to water all of the flower baskets. The Eagles on East High Street actually sponsor that for us every year, and it takes about 20,000 gallons of water to water those during the summertime. And of course, sometimes when it gets warmer and without a lot of rain, it may take a little bit more. But this year was actually really good. One of the biggest things we're going to be excited about was going to be doing the downtown tree lighting on December 3rd at 6. I'm not sure which mayor-elect or current mayor or both or everyone, please come. Yes, please, everyone come. You'll see there, we actually, through a donation from the GB Stewart Foundation, we're able to buy a new tree. Now, this isn't the exact tree, but it's pretty darn close. It's going to be a 22-foot tree, and working with the county and working with our public works office, getting it up, training on getting it up, training on getting it down, storage. We're hoping to see this thing look great for this year, and there's an opportunity to add another 4 feet in the future. My goal is always to have the biggest tree around. So hopefully we'll be able to see that happen. This past year has been of great interest to people who are wanting to get out and see things and do things. Everyone's been cooped up for the last 18 months. Ford Parade and the Corvette Parade were huge for us this year. We were expecting and seeing about $150,000 bump in the downtown economy over the Ford Parade, and about a $276,000 bump in the economy during the Corvette Parade. The Corvette Parade was the largest that we have ever had. And we're always in need for more help with that, more volunteers, more people to help out at the fairgrounds. It's a great way to meet the people that are coming into our area, and it's also a great way for things like the Harvest of the Arts, for our elected officials to get out there and meet and greet and shake hands with people who are actually voting, and love to see you at times of more of a fluff situation rather than when the sewage line gets backed up or there is a wreck or something like that, which I know you get all of those calls. But yeah, we did do Harvest of the Arts again. This year was interesting because a lot of the artists were either depleted in stock, or they were doing other shows. They had a year off and they kind of got out of the actual circuit. So we were really trying to look for good artists, and we should be doing very, very well with Harvest of the Arts again for next year. 2022 is going to be our biggest ice art fest again ever. We are starting to sell the ice carvings now. They're on sale. If anyone goes to iceartfest.com, they can actually buy them there. And they're $350 for anyone who's in the C1, $450 for anyone outside of the C1. We are going to be working with it. I'm hoping to be working with the chamber this year on offering chamber members the C1 option too. I think the only way I'm able to grow this is getting businesses outside of the C1 to actually come in and actually purchase them also. But also you'll see here too that in the last about 3 years, we did increase the number of shopping guides that we do. Not only is it the spring and summer one here, but then we are doing the fall into Carlisle one. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is trying to compete with the Walmarts and the Targets and the Macy's and have that Black Friday sales circular that actually has pictures and prices on things. A lot of people, you still hear people who have lived here for their entire lives go by a store and say, I've never known that you were here. At least here, this will be coming out soon. It's pictures of the product and descriptions of the product and the prices. And we're getting those out. We have a sponsor to print that. The stores can get into it for free. We don't like to charge the stores as much as possible. We don't like to charge the stores. And then we'll be getting that out not only in a print version, but as on an online version also. And page 6, if you're following along at home. One of our biggest successes this past year, thank you to Susan Armstrong for asking us to kind of take a look at this, was the Love Bucks. This was something that we got an award for at our statewide conference, and so far we have over $11,000 of these sold. We just got a sponsorship from the Kentucky company to do a special holiday version of it, and you'll be seeing those coming out here probably on Black Friday, along with our new Christmas ornament. And some of our kind of meat and potatoes successes this past year, you'll see on page 7, the economic restructuring. We did our 7th showcase this year. These showcases are now being done across the state. It's a great way for people to kind of come into town, not have to peer into windows, not have to figure out who to call to see who they can talk to about rental. These are things that we are able to invite people in. We'll be able to open up doors and have our borough people there, our codes people there, KDIC, the CCHRA. Sometimes we even have lenders there. They're able to try to get people in to these places. Honestly, it's the truth. We're at our lowest vacancy rate right now in 20, 30 years. That's the biggest thing for us right now, is just trying to find places for people. We have people in the hopper, but we're trying to find the right spots for everyone to make sure that they are a success whenever they actually get here. And on page 8, I wanted to try and jump down to the bottom here before I go to the top. Talking about the showcase people, a lot of these people on this list attended those showcases. We actually opened up 18 new places this past year. A lot of concern and hand wringing happened when COVID was happening. And I just want to make sure that with these 18 new, it's just because it's in this, that is my name on the back of it. It is the amazing partnerships between the borough and KDIC and CCHRA and the chamber and us, and everyone here has an actual part in this. It's one of those things is that we are doing so well, and it is because that everyone here works together so very, very well too. So thank you to the leadership here and council and everyone. But also, and see, I don't want to steal the mayor's thunder here because I've kind of read ahead a little bit. But on Saturday, November the 27th, we just did get in our shop small bags for just for the shop small Saturday, and the posters. Yep. So make sure everyone gets out there and checks that out. This is again the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and this has become the first largest shopping day. The second only Ice Art Festival weekend is usually the second largest, next to Harvest of the Arts. But yeah, this is a wonderful time to get out there and actually see everything that this town has to offer, and making sure you get those things under your tree. I just kind of want to read this at your own leisure. I do want to kind of make some time to kind of go over everything with council people on a separate basis. But not only do we do our own every year thing, but we are also kind of doing a whole strategic plan this past year. About 45 different projects and tasks that we actually were doing. I don't want to read over them all here, but I just want to kind of touch on a few. One of the ones, though, that was outside of that was a project that we did with Councilor Hicks with the Roll Up Your Sleeves. It was a wonderful event right outside of Sadler. Thank you to him and all the people that came out from the hospital and the people that performed music and everyone that donated prizes. It was a great thing. I think we got over 70 people vaccinated. That was wonderful. And again, we can read over this at your own leisure, and I will be kind of reaching back out to everyone. But on page 13 here, we just did go out with an RFP statewide to find a facilitator to do a transformational strategic plan for us for downtown, pretty much a recovery and resiliency plan. We're hoping to then parlay that into a 5-year strategic plan to submit to DCD for Main Street designation. Councilor Winston Fulham knows what goes along with that, and looking for the partnership with the borough and with the other people in the downtown and the area to make sure that we make full we optimize that to the fullest. But just in closing, thank you very, very much. We always love the work that we do here. We always love the support that we have here, and we're hoping for your support again in 2022. Thank you.
Thank
But
you,
my
Glenn.
timer wasn't going on here, so I don't know how
Oh,
long I typed.
I have no idea. But council appreciates all the work that DCA does throughout the year. You've pulled off several events this past year, and I hear nothing but good things. And I'm looking for one of those bags too, so I'll be stopping by to
I'll
see
leave
that.
it right here for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Glenn, before you step away, I have a question, a couple
Sure.
of questions for you. And one, I want to remind you, I'm a big fan of DCA. When it was on life support over a decade ago, fought to make sure it survived through that. I was a little perplexed by the article that was in the Sentinel recently, and I know you know the one I'm talking about. And Andrew, I appreciate your staff stepping up and getting the Christmas parade together. It suggested that the reduction in contributions from the borough and the college caused an inability of DCA to put on the Christmas parade. And our staff's putting it on, and our cost beyond which is typically absorbed by the borough anyway, is about $1,500. So that didn't quite make sense to me, that the DCA couldn't come up with something that the borough absorbs. The financial impact causing the parade to be canceled initially didn't make sense. Can you clarify that for me?
There's a big web of tasks, job duties, job descriptions that happened and the Downtown Carlisle Association. With the reduction in funding, we had to let go a full-time person who handled not only the program coordination and the coordination of the volunteers and assisted them with the planning of a lot of these actual events, but also handled the accounts manageable, the accounts payable, the accounts receivable, the payroll, just general office management. When that happened, we actually, back in February, we were asked what we were able to actually do or not do because of that. We went from 2.5 people down to 1.5 people. And with everything else that you see that we do here, it all funnels through me. I can't take up another 2,040 hours of a full-time person to manage and run a project like that. So we did look at that. It should have been in all of your board packets and in the minutes. Actually, it's been talked about throughout the year that we were not able to do the actual parade this year. And when it came up, finally, as we were kicking the can down the road as much as possible. But when we were finally asked, is the parade going to happen? We had to say no. We were still planning on bringing Santa in, like we did last year, and the COVID way, and that's still going to happen. We're going to be bringing Santa Claus in December 3rd to light the tree. We didn't have a parade the previous year, and that's exactly what happened. We were not planning on doing the parade since February.
And I understand that the volunteer committee typically put that parade together, and I actually, back in the day when I was on Summer Fair, used to organize the parade while I had a full-time job and was on council additionally. What really kind of perplexed me is looking back and I did look at the minutes. I noticed that in the minutes of DCA that that there was a discussion that possibly the parade would not be able to go on. One, it would have been helpful for us to know that earlier on rather than putting our staff on it at the 11th hour to try to make it happen during a festive time, during hopefully on the back end of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went through the 990s, I noticed year after year, since about 2010, there's been a greater and greater cash reserve that DCA has. And I only have up through 2019, the cash reserve was $130,000. I know that when I last saw the financials of DCA toward the end of last year, there was $100,000 plus reserve, plus DCA received PPP. And so I didn't quite understand, one, why that position was reduced solely because of what was potentially a year or two reduction because of the reduction in our parking meter fund. what is the purpose of that cash reserve that I see year after year DCA is holding on to, that is almost the equivalent of the contributions that DCA receives from the borough and the college?
Well, first of all, the volunteers for the parade, pretty much staff runs about 90% of that parade. The volunteers are not doing the forms. The volunteers are not writing the script. The volunteers are not doing the lineup. The volunteers are not doing the ops plans. It's all staff. And cash reserves in the bank does not equal up to staff time to actually do that. Now, what also that is about is, I don't know if you're going to give us zero next year. I don't know if the college is going to give us zero next year. I don't have a contract with you. I had a few years ago a 2-year commitment from the borough. It's kind of like the coach's football. If he only has a 1-year contract from the owner, the team really doesn't buy into him. I'm having a hard time getting buy-in from people when I go year to year to year without a commitment from council on, yes, Glenn, we're going to support you by X amount. With that, the parade, the Christmas parade in and of itself actually only started in 2016. It was Council President Perry Heath that had a person get up here and talk about how his father was the Santa Claus of the parade many years ago. And Perry Heath said, well, the guy you have to talk to is back in the back there. And I was sitting back in the back. It was something that was not voted on by our board. It was not something that was actually brought up through actually talking from the town saying that we wanted to have this back. It was actually Borough Council that asked us to actually do that. Same way with the Ford Parade. There are things that get layered onto us, and Borough Council has only increased our funding by about $3,000 over the last 10 years, and keep layering on and layering on and layering on. And again, we can, through good business practices, develop a business model to support things like, if I want to buy banners, I don't have to go out and find funding for it. I can actually have reserves back there. If by chance through the designation process, I need to have a match, $10,000, $30,000, I don't have to come to you. I can actually have a match. If you have a project that you needed a match for, and it's related to downtown, yeah, we can make that happen.
Glenn, when have you used a match like that in the last 10 years?
You can ask me. I would always be available if it's something.
But, no, I'm saying historically you haven't done.
I haven't because I've never been asked.
Okay.
And it's one of those things too that.
So we're providing funds to DCA. DCA is building up cash reserve, and then we would go to DCA and ask.
Well, we are not going to. That's one of the things that actually happened during our first strategic plan with Chris Golata was, we cannot operate at a zero balance. We need to be able to have things in case something happens.
I agree with that. I want to circle back to
and honestly, a lot of those Love Carlisle money is in there, and you know it's. We have been trying to really manage that without being exorbitant, and we're not exorbitant, but also we're not struggling like a lot of these other towns. We're doing very, very well. The downtown is doing very, very well.
Right. What I wanted to go back to is the position that was terminated made what, maybe 30,000 or so. I know it was advertised in 2017. $15 an hour was the top end, 37.5 hours a week. So there's somewhere around $30,000 back then. Maybe there have been some increases since then. You've had that position for at least the last 3-4 years with limited commitment. Any year the borough could say we're not budgeting the fund, but you've had that position. So that's ringing a little hollow to me that suddenly this year, because we had a reduction with this cash reserve, you could have kept that position on another year and said, we're gonna stick to it. We're gonna produce what we need to produce because the businesses need it now, and we're sitting on It was, like I said, $130,000 coming into 2020. And so the suggestion in the paper that DCA was unable to put on a parade because of the reduction in the contributions from the borough and college, it was a decision by I suppose you and your board to reduce that position when you had funds in reserve for a rainy day that's equivalent to 50% reserve of your budget roughly, right?
The funding that you're referring to, actually, I believe with the PPP loan, with the PPP money, was to offset the 2020 losses because we were not able to do anything in 2020.
I'm not talking about PPP. I'm talking about going into 2020. You already had $130,000 reserve, and I don't know what the cash on hand was at the end of 2020, but our reduction didn't happen until this year, and that's why I kind of just want to hear that maybe you misspoke in the paper, and that it wasn't really completely the financial burden because of the reduction from the borough and the college, given an almost 50% reserve in DCA's finances.
I wouldn't lie to the paper. I would not lie to anyone. When we had the reduction in funding, we were asked by borough what would we not be able to do with that funding, and we had to make those choices. It wasn't me. It was the board. It was during an special executive committee meeting that these were the projects that we're not going to be able to do. It's something we're never faced with before. It was something that may have been reactionary back in February. Everything in COVID was we didn't know what we were going to be able to do.
I get that. I'm just looking at even years before COVID. DCA sitting on funds that could be on the street helping businesses, and it wasn't happening.
I don't know. My treasurer's not here.
Yeah, I have the 990s.
There could be a lot of, there's a lot of expenses. It's just not us down there sitting in a free rent place.
Glenn, it's cash on hand reported on the 990. It was $130,000 in 2019. It was $140,000 in 2018. It started in 2010 at $32,000. That's been built up over the years, and those are funds that aren't helping businesses because they're sitting in a bank account. So, I mean, that's the point. And I felt like perhaps the Sentinel didn't have the full picture, and that's unfortunate because what it did was effectively throw a couple of the most important funding sources you have under the bus. Yet you have this relatively enormous cash reserve for your organization. So I mean, we can go back and forth on that, but it was dismay. And that's the point I'm making.
And it's like something I would like to actually have my treasurer reach out to you to talk about that. Now, the unfortunate thing is not everyone in the room will be able to hear maybe exactly the explanation for that, because I was not prepared for you to actually ask me those.
Sure.
Those questions.
It's the numbers are accurate. So, but I'd be happy to have that conversation. Sure.
The number's the number. The costs to run the organization are the costs to run the organization too. And I don't know how those all equal out, but I'd be more than happy to talk with you again about it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, bud.
Thank you very much.
All right. That is our last scheduled citizen to be heard. Madam Secretary, is there anyone on the Zoom that would like to address council?
There is not, Mayor Scott.
All right, then moving on, we shall go to the consent agenda. The following is a list of routine items which do not appear to be controversial in nature and which probably do not require additional discussion. They can be acted on by one motion in their current form. If discussion is desired on any particular item, any member of council or the public may request the item be removed from the consent agenda, and that item will be considered separately. I'll ask council first. Looking at pages 1 and 2, any item any member of council would like to see removed and discussed separately? Okay, I'll take that as a no. And now we'll throw it out the audience. Again, we're looking at pages 1 and 2. If any member of the audience would like to have an item removed and discussed separately, now would be the time. All right, I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And that takes care of everything on pages 1 and 2. If you're playing along at home, moving on to page 3 on the regular agenda, There are no tabled, continued, or recurring items. We'll go to reports from elected officials. Mayor's report. I have a couple items, and I'll kick it over to Councilor Landis for item number 3. First up, Small Business Saturday Proclamation. As Mr. Glenn White said, November 27th, we will once again be proclaiming it Small Business Saturday in the Borough of Carlisle. And of course,
they need to find a place to live, a job, childcare, counseling, and if these needs are not met in a timely manner, a woman might find herself with no alternative but to move back into the hostile environment which she escaped. So they are looking for to provide a safe, friendly, affordable place for 5 to 6 women to live until they have received significant emotional, financial, and spiritual support and can become successfully establish an affordable permanent housing. So their process is going to be looking to provide a group living situation for women during this time of transition to become self-supporting. They're looking for a home to provide private rooms for several women who can share a bathroom, kitchen, and common areas. And so they're right now looking for spaces, and our letter of support is basically their request is to assist us in securing a property. We are asking for a one-time grant of $400,000 for the acquisition of one house. So we are basically simply saying that we are in support of this organization trying to make this new service available within Carlisle Borough. So I thought that was a good use of our words in support. Also, there's a lot of names that we know of that are enthusiastic supporters from the community: Sonia Brown, Mary Kuna, Caitlin Cluck, Michael Landis, Kristen Kennedy, Kelly Crawford, Ryan Brown, David Hook. So a lot of these are names that we know, so it's not only us that would be providing support of documents. So
those are good names to be associated with, and without objection, we will send a letter of support. Thank you, Councilor. All right, reports from committee, community planning and smart growth. Mr. Cramsey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items tonight. First, we'll start with item number 1. I'll make a motion that Borough Council may consider enacting an ordinance amending Chapter 193 of the Code of the Borough of Carlisle to provide for registration and inspection of rental dwelling units and amend Chapter 120 to provide for fees with respect thereto.
Mr. Cramsey makes a motion to enact a rental ordinance in the borough. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll open it up to my colleagues, but just wanted to say, give a shout out to staff and everyone in the public and the landlords. This has been a long process. I don't think anyone can accuse us of not taking our time to try to get this as right as we can. With public policy, it is very hard to make everyone happy. I think the intent of this ordinance is in the right place. What we are tasked with to do here on Borough Council is look out for the safety and welfare of our citizens, and I think this ordinance strikes the right tone in doing that. So I'll be supporting this ordinance tonight, but also want to give a shout out to staff as well as Councilor Fulham Winston, who took the lead on this many years ago. now I can say over a year for all of her hard work. So with that, I'll be supporting it and looking forward to the vote. Thanks.
Any further comments from council? Any comments from the audience? Hello, stranger. And yeah. You look better on camera that way. Yeah, remember you're on camera.
Good evening, Matt Madden, 777 West South Street. As Councilor Cramsey mentioned, this has been a long time coming. It was one of the first topics on the agenda nearly a decade ago when I was sitting up there. And while fundamentally it's just not my favorite ordinance, the only thing I would ask of council is please hold it accountable. I believe that this is something that's going to go forward tonight. So just please make sure that you have a clear vision of what you anticipate it to do. You've heard a number of the adverse impacts that could occur. Please make sure you track those as well and have a timeline in which you're just going to hold the ordinance accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Any further comments from the audience this evening? Anyone on Zoom?
We lost our internet connection.
Okay.
I'll make one more comment just
Sure.
to just because it was brought up earlier, and I did just want to make a note of it. No ordinance is perfect. No ordinance is the thing that's going to fix everything. And it's been brought up repeatedly that it will increase the affordability of housing in Carlisle. And I think the key is also looking at other strategies to continually make sure that we put affordable housing as a forefront, but also making sure that people that need housing that is affordable, and affordable housing is just what you can afford. So, there's people that can afford way more than others, ensuring that everyone has a good quality place to live. So there's lots of other strategies that we are working on currently. We're in meetings about lots of different things. And I think that it's not just affordable housing, lots of other things that have been countered in this, about this ordinance are other things that we're looking at. So in different ways. So we're always trying to make sure that we're doing the best for our residents and our businesses and everyone in the borough. So I just want to make sure that it's understood that when it is brought up that maybe this alone could be the end of affordable housing in Carlisle. It's not, and we're always looking at strategies to continue to ensure that our most vulnerable folks have a chance to have a good place to live here in Carlisle.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else? All right, I believe it's that time. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Cramsey?
Aye.
Ms. Fulham Winston?
Aye.
Mr. Hicks?
Aye.
Ms. Landis?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Stubbe?
Aye.
And Mayor Scott.
Aye. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My second item tonight, I'll make a motion that Borough Council may approve an 83-day time extension request by Burgett and Associates, Inc. on behalf of Hamilton Commons, LLP, for considering and taking action on the final subdivision and land development plan for Hamilton Commons as per section 226-21.A.2 of the Borough Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. The new deadline shall be February 10th, 2022.
Mr. Cramsey makes a motion to approve an 83-day time extension request. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. That's my report.
Thank you. ERCP, Mr. Stubbe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item on the agenda this evening, and I will bounce that over to Amy for update and discussion on personnel policies.
Thank you. One of the first things I did upon my arrival at the borough was to review the employee handbook and familiarize myself with borough policies. Over the course of the past several months, a few areas were identified that required changes, additions, and/or clarification of the policy. While I'm still working on identifying policies that do not exist and need to be added, there are some minor changes to the current policies, and I'll just provide a few examples of those. Adjusting anywhere that it says his or her to the non-binary they or their. Adding policy around our minimum requirement of a 30-minute lunch break during the workday, which cannot be used to reduce the workday. Modifying light duty policy to clarify that there will be periodic reviews of the borough's ability to provide any light duty assignment. Removal of the statement that employees can take comp time instead of overtime with approval of their supervisor, because under the FLSA, supervisor approval is not permitted. It's always the employee's choice. Remove reference to specific percentages employees will contribute to our medical insurance premiums, amounts for uniforms, and equipment reimbursement. amounts for tuition reimbursements and so forth, so that if any changes are made to those amounts or percentages, it would not require an update to the policy or the handbook. Adding clarification to the volunteer fire service policy regarding whether and how employees will be paid for their work hours if they leave to respond to a fire. So those are just a few of the changes to the current policy. I'll continue to work on identifying policies that need to be added. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. I did just have one other thing I wanted to bring up before turning it over, and that's that we do have openings on a number of borough boards and commissions, an opening on the Climate Action Commission, an opening on the Zoning Hearing Board, and an open for an alternate position on the Human Relations Commission. So if anyone on council or anyone in the public knows anyone that's interested in applying, I'd encourage you to go onto the borough's website, look up the information on those positions, and feel free to apply. But that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to public safety. In September of 2020, Councilor Jeff Stubbe introduced the concept of modifying penalties issued for possession and smoking marijuana. Research was completed, and Borough Council discussed this topic at multiple meetings, and in December 2020, ultimately approved a temporary one-year pilot program. Since December 2020, Carlisle Borough has been monitoring impacts from this temporary program. While there have been a few instances of misunderstandings about the ordinance, there have not been any significant impacts to the community. With the timing of the temporary ordinance expiring in December, a review was completed to determine if any modifications were needed for potentially a permanent ordinance. And that's the point that we're at this evening. And so therefore, I make a motion that council enact an ordinance amending Chapter 110, Drugs and Paraphernalia of the Code of the Borough of Carlisle.
I second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'll just
Jeff, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just thank everybody on council and on staff for their input and feedback on this over, as Mayor Scott has alluded to, the year and some change that we've discussed and reviewed this ordinance. I think the ordinance that we'll have on the books permanently is stronger than what we started with. Ultimately, though, this is an issue that requires attention at a higher level of government, at the state and at the federal level. Obviously, this is only something that we can only control to a certain extent. And personally, from my perspective, I think at the state level, there's a need to address this by legalizing, which is something that a number of other states have done, and something that a number of state legislators in Pennsylvania have considered and introduced legislation on, both Democrats and Republicans, and including our state senator. So I think we're doing what we can here to address this, but further action is needed at the state level and at the federal level.
All right, thank you for those words. All right, unless there's any further comment, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Madam Secretary, if you please.
Mr. Cramsey?
Aye.
Ms. Fulham Winston?
Aye.
Mr. Hicks?
Aye.
Ms. Landis?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Stubbe?
Aye.
And Mayor Scott.
Aye. Motion carries. And that ends my report. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one item tonight. I'd ask Borough Council to approve the purchase of 2 sludge transfer pumps to replace the existing sludge transfer and scum pumps at the wastewater treatment plant from EnviroRep Incorporated, Campbell, Pennsylvania, for $21,345 through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Co-Stars Purchasing Program.
Thank you. Councilor Fulham Winston makes a motion to approve the purchase of 2 sludge transfer pumps and scum pumps for the wastewater treatment plant. Is there a second?
I second the sludge transfer and scum pumps. Yes.
That's just fun to say, isn't it? Thank you for seconding the purchase of the sludge transfer pumps. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yeah, you got to have fun with it, folks. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
And that completes my report.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Does anyone in the audience have any new business they'd like to bring before council? Okay. And we don't still have our internet. Okay. All right, fine. All right, moving on. Reports from councils, members, and staff. We'll start down at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few updates from the college. So Dickinson's Art Museum, the Trout Gallery, has many art exhibits over the semester. So I think is just worthwhile and open to the public. So if you're ever bored, come down and visit the Trout Gallery. As an athletics update, fall sports are wrapping up this week. Field hockey made it to the Centennial Conference, and the winter sports have begun and are open to any spectators. And then as far as a health update, the COVID cases remain low. Currently, there are 0 positive cases. 3 employees, a cumulative of 34 students and 27 employees. Following our fall break, we randomly selected 20% of the student body to test, undergo PCR tests through the Broad Institute, and we'll be doing this once again after Thanksgiving. But we just want to remind that we have a robust internal contact tracing process to minimize risk to the campus community. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Brenda.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I would like to start by wishing the Marine Corps a happy 246th birthday, which I got my Chief Landis text early this morning. My father is a Marine as well, as are, I believe that, I don't want to put it out there, but I think that my neighborhood might have more Marines than the other, because they're everywhere. So like there's flags, there's bumper stickers, there's full license plates. I mean, if you can, I don't know, that's just an opinion, but anyway, this is the other birthday. So happy Veterans Day as well, but happy Marine Corps birthday. Just the other thing was that a wonderful Halloween parade was put on. As always, thank you for also stepping up and doing the holiday parade. I'm sure it'll be I can't say just, actually. It'll be good, but the Halloween parade is the actual best. So it was also fun to be in it. And even though it's always a small crew, just seeing all the people come out. And I don't know if there is someone that doesn't come out for the Halloween parade, because it looks like everyone shows up for it. But thank you so much. It was excellent as always. And everyone there, I know, enjoys it wholeheartedly. So.
Hey, I have a question. Does Dickinson College have a marching band? Do you know?
No, we do not.
Okay. Can you get one? I'm thinking holiday
Can
parade.
you find one for us?
Okay.
There is
amateur band.
There is the Jam Space, which is a little garage back behind Goodyear, and if you hear it, it's because there's just music being played. But I mean, they could probably walk and play.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Why not? Give it a shot.
Nice try, Andrea.
Yeah.
That completes my report.
All right. Ms. Fulham Winston.
Just a brief word. In 2010, I worked with 3 neighborhood associations to draft a rental inspection ordinance for the Carlisle Borough. This was done to address the deep negative effect of unregulated rental properties on the value of homes and the fabric of the neighborhood. After many months of discussions and a presentation to the Planning Commission, the draft ordinance was killed. However, the problem did not go away, and it could well have become worse given that our percentage of rental properties has also continued to increase. Now we have an ordinance which will protect both tenants and homeowners in each neighborhood. Having a safe, repaired, functioning living space is integral to one's mental and physical health. I thank all of the borough staff members who spent amazing numbers of hours working on this project over the last 4 years, and I also thank my fellow council members for taking this issue so seriously and working to make life better for all of our residents. Thank you.
And as one of my last official acts, I will be happy to sign that ordinance this evening. So, Mr. Cramsey.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, Jesse. Good to see you in person. Just a few items tonight. Glenn touched on it, but looking forward to Small Business Saturday. Please get out, support our small businesses. It's always a fun day. Hopefully the weather cooperates. Shout out to Andrea and her team. Again, thank you for taking on the parade and all the work that your department does. I love seeing, I think maybe Stephanie posts the Instagram photos of all the leagues that are running now, which is even great during the pandemic to have those offerings for folks to be able to get out and get active, in these tough times. You wouldn't expect it with the weather that we've been seeing recently, but it is November. So I want to give a preemptive good luck and shout out to both our chiefs and to Mark as, maybe, hopefully not before our next meeting if we have any severe weather events or snow. You all put in great time and effort. So I hope our citizens, even with, the time changing, it getting darker earlier, and if we do have severe weather events, please be careful, please be safe, because that keeps our staff safe as well. And then my last item, since we won't meet before then, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks.
All right, since I never do anything, I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor.
Council Crampsey, we'll see each other next week. But that's before Thanksgiving. Yeah, we still have a budget to go through, but
My bad.
but it doesn't hurt to say Happy Thanksgiving a couple of times. You'll be there, right? Okay. Thank you, and to all our veterans here tonight. To my dad, who served in the Air Force, my uncles who served in the Army, my grandfathers have passed, both served in the Army and the Navy in World War II. Councilor Hicks, thank you for your service, and my brother who's currently serving in the Navy. We're not a country without all of you. Two, on affordable housing, we had a nice affordable housing opening on East South Street. There's East and South. I always get sort of mixed up for a moment. East South Street. A hearty thank you to the former property owner there, who was truly believed in the spirit of what we were trying to do with that property. Councilor Fulham Winston was there with me this week when we had an open house. It's fantastic. Fantastic. You can't even call it a facelift, because the original building that was demoed was a real eyesore. And to have stood there in front of that building and what it was back then, and then see what it is now, it's just such a tremendous difference. Better for the neighborhood. I know a lot of the neighbors are excited about it, and we have to say thank you to DCED who provided home funds for that project, Tri-County Housing Development Corporation, and Cumberland County Housing and Redevelopment, all integral partners in that effort. And it came together. It seemed like overnight. I'm sure for everybody working directly on it, it didn't feel that way. And just as I mentioned, we have our budget hearing starting on Monday, November 15th. That's really where a lot of our priorities are decided. So the public ought to show up. But if you don't, you can hopefully watch online if our internet doesn't go down again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stubbe.
I have nothing further this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things. First of all, I want to congratulate a couple of my colleagues here for election this past week, and I'm looking forward to serving with you for at least a few more years. So, and then Ms. Sobrania Perry, who anybody who's been involved with much of anything in this borough knows that she's had her hand in it. I'm looking forward to her being up here. Unfortunately, it means one person has to leave, and Deb, I was thinking as all this was going down, like, I wonder why we can't do like they do in the federal government by naming ordinance after people. I mean, we had the Waxman Markey bill, we had the Goldwater Nichols for everybody who's in the military. Like, we should have the Deb Fulham Winston ordinance. Yeah. I'm going to look into it, and if it could be done, your name's going on it.
Does Deb want the sludge transfer and stuff?
Yeah,
sludge transfer Deb Fulham Winston Act. Yeah.
But your work on that, it takes persistence and some of the hardest things to do, and it definitely deserves to be on the name of that. Thank you for your work on that. This evening, there are 8 Widener Law School students who are very nervously getting red-boarded on 4 draft ordinances that are written as a hypothetical request from the Borough of Carlisle. Some of those are targeted, as Councilor Landis mentioned, at doing some what-ifs to address maybe the theme of tonight is the challenge we know we have to make housing more affordable here. There's a group looking at how we might incentivize getting more very low income folks here by working with landlords. We have another group looking at what it would take perhaps to look at accessory dwelling units. We have another who are looking actually in response to a situation we had obviously with Grace Methodist Church in response to one of the participants saying, it probably wouldn't hurt the borough to look at a more holistic approach to exceptional buildings to see if there's another way we can look at how that zoning could be done. And we have a group looking at how that might be better addressed in the future. And then lastly, we have a group looking at what it might look like to sort of get rid of one of the worst waste disposal challenges we have with single-use plastics. As you know, there's a lot of movement throughout the country, but also in Pennsylvania to really target one of the, I think, unarguably worst cases where we have a pollutant that just doesn't seem to fit in a circular or recycled economy. So we have some Dickinson students doing some surveys. You'll notice on the borough website, if you're a business, if you're a resident, we want to hear your opinion. And we're a few of us, along with volunteers, are working hard to sort of outline the parameters of some of these issues so that we can stay informed. And one thing I really have come to value in my 2 years here is we don't knee-jerk things here. We were very deliberative, and I really appreciate that process, and I really appreciate the time that many of you here and out here give to really trying to, at the core, make a more informed decision, and that's something I value and look forward to continue to do. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Madam Manager.
I know that we already covered the parade, but I will punt it to Andrea to just give a little bit of detail about the parade that's coming up. It's really exciting, and they didn't hesitate when asked to put it on. So we already had planned to recognize Parks and Recreation at your December workshop meeting. So Andrea and her team will be up at the podium with smiles under masks. And we'll have a number of stories to share with you, some that you'll know, some you may not know. But Andrea, do you want to talk just a little bit about where you're at?
Yeah, so the parade, the Making Spirits Bright Parade, December 4th, Saturday, December 4th at 11 o'clock. You can register for the parade online. We have like a fillable form, so if someone's interested, they can go to the Parks and Rec website or click on the link in the press release, and that links you to the fillable form registration. And so we're taking all online registration. Someone can come in the office too. But we are going to, the day of the parade, the lineup is going to be actually out front. It'll be from starting at South Hanover Street on West High, and the lineup only will go to Southwest Street. And then the parade will start at the corner of South Hanover and go north. So we're going north for the parade route instead of south, but going north, and then it'll go past the square, and then it'll end at Lowther Street, East Lowther Street. So it's smaller, our Halloween parade route is probably half the size. This one is a bit smaller. There's no registration fee for the parade. We are searching for bands, and that's why I mentioned that before. We're trying to limit it to floats or decorated vehicles or performing groups. We found out today that we won't be able to have any of the high school bands, or maybe middle school band. I'm not sure about that one, but the high school band, because it's the Saturday morning, the 4th, is the day of district tryouts for band. So all of the high school bands will not be available. So we're searching for adult bands. I know there are some out there. We just might have to find those. So if anyone knows of any, that'd be great. Trying to think if there's anything else. The Borough Jamboree Band. So I think that's about it. The Parks and Recreation staff, they've been awesome. They've put together a really nice logo, registration form, and we do have parade guidelines, that type of thing. So it's been nice. We're excited for it. It'll be different. So.
Yeah, and believe me, I got some calls when that hit the paper.
Did ya?
Borough cancels Christmas. I mean,
that one.
Yeah.
That call.
So thank you so much for coming to the rescue.
Yeah.
Because it was getting a little dicey there for a minute, but we appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have experience with parades, so I think we'll be all right. I've gotten 6 calls for people who want to volunteer. So
I was going to ask you about that. I spoke to Ed Kendall from Mount Holly, and he wanted to know who people should reach out to if they want to volunteer or help.
Yeah,
so.
They can reach out to me.
Great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is that it? All right. Mr. Solicitor, nothing from you? No. All right. Thank you very much. All right, folks, we're adjourned. Thank you.